Welcome to the Truth and Action Share Club, where we ask, is Canada a myth? We will explore common law rights, due process, and the grand jury. If it wasn't lawfully replaced, it still governs underneath. Do we truly have a constitution? We will ask about the legitimacy of the 1982 transformation, who holds power in Canada today, and what law still governs underneath everything. Our first topic is why government exists. Government was created for one purpose: to protect the people, not to control them. The role of government was simple: to maintain order, protect life and property, and defend the nation. However, history consistently shows a pattern where power expands, authority concentrates, and control replaces service. This brings us to the real question of power. There are only two possibilities: either the people hold the power, or the state holds the power. There is no stable middle ground unless something higher, law itself, restrains government. Our third section covers the first limit on power. The year 1215 and the Magna Carta was the turning point. For the first time in Canadian constitutional history, we saw the rule of law, limited authority, and pre-existing rights, where rights were recognized as pre-existing government. This framework gave rise to common law, due process, civil liberties, independent courts, and trial by jury. Next, we examine common law civil liberties. Out of the Magna Carta tradition grew the common law civil liberties that shaped free society. It is important to remember that these liberties were not created by government. They were recognized protections belonging to the people. Among the most important of these liberties were the trial by jury, protection of property, due process of law, protection against unlawful search and seizure, and the right of citizens to hold government accountable. And one of the most powerful safeguards ever developed to protect these liberties was the grand jury. The grand jury was historically empowered to investigate crimes, compel testimony, hear evidence under oath, issue indictments, and issue presentments exposing wrongdoing. It existed specifically for moments when those in power would not investigate themselves. Because the grand jury arises from common law, it cannot be repealed by statute. Statutes can regulate procedures, but civil liberties rooted in common law cannot be erased by legislation. Next, we examine Canada's true foundation, which began in 1867 with the Constitution Act. This act established the structure of government, division of powers, and a system rooted in British constitutional principles. The established principles include parliamentary supremacy, the rule of law, and common law rights. The preamble to the 1867 Constitution Act states that Canada is to have a quote, constitution similar in principle to that of the United Kingdom. The Statute of Westminster 1931 gave Canada full legislative independence. However, Canada still lacked a domestic constitutional amending formula. Before 1982, Canada already recognized rights through the Canadian Bill of Rights, established in 1960. These rights included life, liberty, and security of the person, property rights, due process, and freedom of religion and expression. In 1982, an attempt was made to restructure with the Canada Act, which introduced the Constitution Act, 1982, and the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. This restructuring involves shifting power towards the courts, reframing rights as charter-based, and introducing mechanisms for governments to limit rights. The Charter contains built-in control mechanisms, such as Section 1, the Reasonable Limits Clause. This means rights can be limited if the government justifies those limits and the courts deem them acceptable. Another mechanism is Section 33, the Notwithstanding Clause, allowing governments to override certain rights renewable every 5 years. Crucially, the 1982 attempt failed to eliminate common law civil liberties, the Canadian Bill of Rights, parliamentary supremacy, the 1867 Constitutional Foundation, or common law protections from Magna Carta. The Supreme Court clarified in Attorney General v. Power 2024 that Parliament remains central to lawmaking. Parliamentary privilege still exists, and the constitutional framework was not replaced. We now examine the real structure today. Canada operates under the 1867 Constitution, common law tradition, the Canadian Bill of Rights, the 1982 amendments, and parliamentary authority and judicial interpretation. In conclusion, the 1982 transformation introduced new control mechanisms, but did not remove the original constitutional order. The common law civil liberties inherited from Magna Carta remain part of Canada's constitutional tradition. The grand jury safeguard is a citizen-led mechanism designed to investigate serious wrongdoing when institutions fail. Our final point is the principle of continuity. If a system is not lawfully replaced, it still governs.